My dear friends, colleagues, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. I am absolutely delighted and thrilled to welcome you to the third day of the IACTA TE webinar 2020, spread
See,
over 5 days.
SVT with occurrence. See, there is a right bundle branch block.
This webinar is being held in collaboration with the International Society of Cardiac Ultrasound, Indian Academy of Echocardiography, University of Minnesota, the Simulation Society, and is endorsed by the IACTA, EACTA, American Society of Echocardiography, and Indian Association of Cardiothoracic Surgeons. This is an exciting day for me, not only because I'm waiting for quality presentations from the renowned faculty, but also we are going to listen to the young presenters in the Golden Fate contest halfway through the meeting today. I'm delighted to announce that KMC has granted 3 credit points for this educational activity, and those who attend all the sessions will get the credits. I request the moderators to introduce the speaker and the topic, stick to the time, and lead the discussion. Panelists are requested to contribute to the discussion at the end of all the 3 talks. Speakers are requested to stick to 18 minutes of talk time. Attendees are requested to post their questions and comments on the chat box. With this short introduction, I am looking forward to the exciting event today. And I hereby invite the moderators for this session to take over and conduct the scientific program. The moderators for today's program is Dr. Suresh Nair, who is a leading cardiac anesthesiologist of international fame. He is from Kochi, currently working for the Aster Group, and I request him to take over. And the second moderator is Dr. Manjula Sarkar, who is a leading cardiac anesthesiologist from Mumbai and is very well known in cardiac anesthesia circles. So Dr. Suresh Nair and Manju Sarkar, can you please take over and conduct the proceedings?
Thank you, Dr. Murli. Wonderful evening. Good evening to all the speakers as well as the audience. It's my pleasure to introduce today 2 eminent cardiac surgeons, Dr. Bashi from Chennai and Dr. Keshav Murthy from Bangalore. Along with them, the other 3 panelists is one of my former colleagues from Sri Yitra Institute of Medical Sciences, Dr. Rupa Sridhar, Dr. Jayaprakash and Dr. Raghu B are young anesthesiologists from Bangalore who will also join the panelists. Now, I hope all of you are on screen now. Now I'll introduce the first speaker for the evening, Dr. Sudhagar Subramani. He is from Iowa, and he'll be talking about aortic valve replacement. Over to you, Dr. Subramani.
Thank you, Dr. Nair and other panelists for this initiating the session, and of course Dr. Muralidhar, who's been inspired many cardiac guys in our country as well as overseas. So it's continuation of many sessions for the past couple of days, and then going to be for a few more days. So we're going to focus today on the aortic valve, and my topic is just on predominantly on the anatomical aspects of the aortic valve. So I'm going to cover briefly about the surgical aspects, what we would like to know, and some of the common views which we have to do in order to get the various measurements that will help for the surgical decision. And then there is some potential role for 3D. It's been expanding for the past, I would say probably 10, 15 years. And so more and more people are getting familiarized and see how it helps pertaining to the aortic valve. And finally, touch base with some of the measurements and then briefly about the variants due to time constraint. So starting with the anatomy, as you all know, we can't just look aortic valve as just an individual structure. It has to be like a kind of an apparatus. As you can see in this picture, it's kind of a comprehensive structure, and you try to understand how this geometry will alter many surrounding structures. So starting from aortic annulus and all the way to the sinotubular junction. And most of the time, the surgeon is going to work right around the annulus. And as we see more and more minimally invasive procedures, this is kind of an area of interest, and try to understand that how it define, the surface area and stuff. In addition to that, we would also like to know what are the attachments to the surrounding structures and how these interleaflets are connected, and those the background histophysiology will help, why in certain pathology changes. Moving on to the leaflet alone, the most common presentation is obviously it's a 3 leaflets. It's kind of a semilunar or half-moon shaped, and as you see this in the rims, it get thicker and thicker as we get old, and at some point it may even get fenestrated. So that can even cause sometimes, minor leaks at the coaptation point. So just to be aware, some of the physiological changes in the geriatric population. And focusing on the interleaflets, the main area is obviously the aortomitral curtain, because it's both aortic and mitral valve is being linked, starting from embryologically. So whenever we try to address one valve, we should focus on the other valve functional anatomy. So that's our goal when you're coming off bypass. If you're repairing mitral valve, you should always make sure that aortic valve is working well. So it's kind of vice versa. Another thing is the, as I'm going to show, functional anatomy, where it's more like a comprehensive way of looking at this. With these 3D models are coming up along with the CT reconstructions, we can see many structures in a much, much better way, how the dynamics works, the coaptation heights, which all we talk about in the mitral valve, it's pretty much applied to the aortic here. So how it can alter, one leaflet versus the other. Moving on to the adjacent structures, there are many things which we would be interested in, but at least the area of interest is obviously the surrounding leaflets, which is the septal leaflet will be shared of the tricuspid valve, and also the muscular part of the interventricular septum are pretty closely attached with the aortic leaflet. So if any pathology altering, for example, if they have any significant asymmetrical hypertrophy, that might influence the function of the aortic valve. So it's kind of a simple diagrammatic representation showing all the 4 common valves. And as you can see, this is the non-coronary cusp, which is basically the sharing between the mitral and the tricuspid valve. Whereas the right, between the left and the non, it is corresponds to the anterior part of the mitral leaflet. Between the right and the non, it corresponds to the septal part of the tricuspid leaflet. So that's kind of the interlinked with the surrounding leaflets. The other structures which we would be more interested, especially it implies both for a TAVR as well as the post AVR or aortic root procedures, it's the AV node as well as the bundle of in his. So this is very, very close to the leaflet. So anytime when the surgical team working around this, there is a potential it may get damaged, or it may be because of the tissue edema that can influence this node. So those are the just kind of a touch base around the aortic valve. So whenever you try to evaluate. Moving on to the echo aspects, the predominant things I would like to highlight is overall it is a simple structure, but at the same time anatomically it's a rapidly moving structure, right? Because it's very close to the LV. So whenever the LV gets hyperdynamic, you have very, very limited time to evaluate the valve. And of course, the 3D helps in certain situations, but also the underlying pathology, for example, calcification, makes things even challenge even with the 3D. And overall, I think we were able to get a decent amount of quality of evaluation with the TE, about 60 to 70% of population excellent, in about 20%. Maybe in about 10%, we may have a challenge even in experienced hands to get the good evaluation. Moving on to the views, I'm sure you guys had overall comprehensive evaluation of the TE. It's kind of showing on the right side where you can see the standard 20 views, but what we need is only the 4 to 5 views focusing on the aortic valve, starting from aortic valve short axis, Then you have aortic valve long axis, and then you will have a kind of a 5-chamber, which is not a conventional view, which I'll show you later. And then two the gastric views. One is the transgastric long axis, and then you have a deep transgastric long axis. These are the 5 views. It's a limited as compared to the mitral. We have more views, so just to be aware of that. Whenever you try to do the echo, primary thing is broadly divided into the 2D, followed by color, and then if there's any quantification, we should try to do it. So starting on the 2D evaluation, obviously you start with the nature of the leaflets, whether it is whether it's a tri or bi or any other variation. Are you seeing calcification? What kind of calcifications you're seeing? Is there any mass around the structures? How to delineate, and then finally we have some common measurements. Moving on to the color, we're going to have a couple of sessions later. They're going to talk about the 2 common valvular disorders around the aortic valve, and then finally some quantifications. So this is the very first view I would like to start when we do the aortic valve. This is like a mid-esophageal aortic valve short axis. As you can see, all 3 leaflets, kind of a Mercedes-Benz sign is the common thing we always name it. As you all are aware, starting from the left atrium, right atrium, and the right ventricle, so the one closer to the septum, which doesn't have a blood supply, is the non-coronary cusp. Closer to the RV is the right coronary, and the left over is the left. You may see sometime the left main coming in and out, but depends upon what plane you are cutting. So this is the classical mid-esophageal AV short axis, which usually obtain anywhere between 25 and sometimes 45 based on the the anatomy of the RV or RA enlargements. This is just the summary of that view. And then the next view will be the mid-esophageal long axis, or you can say mid-esophageal AV long axis if you try to focus more towards the AV aspect. But if you say long axis, you're going to cover LV and then part of the mitral along with the aortic valve and the ascending aorta. So this is kind of give you on the other aspects of the AV. It will be very useful to start with the simple examination of color Doppler to see is there any pathology around, or you can, more important, especially in the non-cardiac or even post-mitral valve repair, something called SAM, which is like a systolic anterior motion, where you can able to get this evaluation around the aortic valve. And that's the structures, and you can see the RV outflow tract right on the right side of the structure. This is the 5-chamber, which is not a conventional view, but sometimes it helps if we have, again, pathology around the subvalvular areas, or, if we have a significant AI, we should be able to qualitatively, we can analyze the degree of the regurgitation. Those are the views which will start with the mid-esophageal, which will be helpful mostly for the qualitative assessments. But if you'd like to do any quantitative assessments, you would like to have one of the gastric views. So if you're able to get the transgastric, which is predominantly obtained from starting from the short axis view at the basal level, I would recommend rather than the mid level. And then you go closer to the angle which you will be getting the aortic valve long axis of the mid-esophageal. So on an average, anywhere between 120 and sometimes I see up to 160. It's again depends upon the degree of diaphragmatic dysfunctions and stuff. So this is the transgastric standard long axis, which will be helpful mostly for quantitative assessment. Moving on to the last view, which is the deep transgastric. As the name implies, the deep, the probe will be quite deeper into the gastric area, and you have more ability to anti-flex, and that's why you can able to get much more alignment across the aortic valve, ascending aorta, as well as the LVOT. And again, it will be helpful to quantitatively assess the valve. In theory, you can get one of this view. You don't need to obtain both. If you obtain, it's well and good. So that's kind of the deep transgastric, and just a simple example where you can get the spectral Doppler across the aortic valve using the transgastric long axis. So that's on the overview of 2D alone by focusing on the 5 views. Now move on to the 3D, and why 3D helps, especially on the aortic valve. As we all know that, it's very hard to say when you are doing an AV short axis, or you like, planimetry, are you maintaining the correct plane or not. And then when you have this 3D feature, you can combine something called an X-plane, which helps to delineate whether you're cutting right across the correct plane. That is one thing we can able to achieve with the 3D. And the second thing, as I mentioned earlier, because of the quite dynamic nature of the AV valve, in a rapidly moving, it may be difficult with the 2D alone, so 3D might help. And some complex pathologies, I think the person who is going to talk about the aortic roots, there's so many other pathologies that can affect the annulus and stuff, so 3D might delineate. And so this is why we may useful to utilize the 3D. So whenever you use the 3D, you can use as a full volume, taking at least 4 to sometimes 6 beads, or even a single bead is enough oftentimes when you try to do the 3D evaluation of the aortic valve. Some measurements. The first one, I would start with the AV, the valvular area, which is one of the useful tools for quantifying the degree of stenosis. It's basically you take the AV short axis snapshot, and then you measure at the mid-systolic where it's wide open, and then trace it. This is what we used to do before we have the 3D, and then there are some errors possible. But with this 3D, we have this something called an X-plane, where you can combine the short and the long at the same time and make sure that you are cutting at the right plane, so that you ensure you are able to achieve the planimetry and minimizing the error. And see more on, I think in India we're going to do more and more TAVR, I believe. So this is one of the essential tools. When we started 10 years ago, the cardiologists spent a lot of time in quantifying it, but with the 3D and as well as the CT reconstructions, we already have the numbers, everything ready before even patient come to the operating room or the cath lab. But this is one tool is very, very essential to narrow down your size of the, when you're deploying the TAVR walls. So that is why this is important measurements. And the final things, which is an adjacent measurements starting from the sinus of Valsalva, sinotubular junction, and ascending aorta, and all those things we can measure when you are doing a aortic valve apparatus. This is one thing which is called an effective height, which is similar to the coaptation height in the mitral valve, where you can measure the distance from the annulus to the tip of the leaflet. It helps sometimes to determine the degree of prolapse. I think the average is about 9 to 10 millimeters. If it goes below 6 or 7, then there is a potential chance of aortic valve prolapse. And a couple of slides to end my session. It's just to touch base some of the advanced tools still available in addition to the basic 3D. There is something called a reconstruction where you can do much more with different probes. For this, you need to have something called an MTE probe, which takes about roughly 3,000 elements as compared to 64 elements when we do a conventional 3D probe. It takes a lot of data on it. What it does is it's reconstruct based on our selection of the reference points, which is basically the mitral annulus points and the aortic annulus points, and try to reconstruct the aortomitral curtain. As I mentioned, this is very important, measurements in certain repairs, in a complex repairs. It's the same thing, which based on the reference points, you try to reconstruct all the views, which I was showing earlier, but just by the AV long axis view. This is one future thing. It's still upcoming. It's all in the research purpose where the based on the flow, you can, analyze the shape as well as the, the area of this AV valve. The last one slide, which is about the variance. As you all know, starting with the tricuspid, but sometimes we may see one of the variants in your practice. The unicuspid, which is extremely rare, and it's present only in 0.02%. So far, I've seen about 2 cases, which is one was still debatable, but the one was the classical unicuspid. Maybe the senior faculties might have seen a little bit more. which is usually tend to present younger age as compared to the most common one, which is the bicuspid. It can present up to 2% of the population. This is the classical bicuspid valve where you can see if, like, you can see the only, like, 2 leaflets. So you can name, I don't know whether maybe like a right, and this is the combination of the left and the non. We can see it during the diastolic and the systolic phase. So just for the completion's sake, there are some types even with the bicuspid valve. Just the schematic representation. The most common ones are always the one present with the raphe, and then the one without the raphes are least. Among the raphe absent one, usually we tend to see left versus the right kind of presentations. And then the last one, it's the quadricuspid, which is mostly like, kind of based on calcifications, or we don't know exactly why they may have an additional raphe on it. And again, it will be presented a little bit early age, and most common pathologies, we tend to see more of insufficiency as compared to what we see in the bicuspid is more like a stenosis. Thank you for listening.